Hi, Bighara here with another installment of my video blog. Continuing some short posts about different quote-unquote classic elements of old school D&D and D&D type games. Today I was going to talk a little bit about alignment. There are a couple different models for alignment. You have anywhere from 3 to up to 9 different alignments. You had a period where people would talk about tendencies too, and I think that was in the first edition age. We had things like lawful good with neutral tendencies and stuff like that. But it really doesn't matter whether you're talking about 3 different alignments or 9 different alignments or anywhere in between. That's not really the issue. The issue is using alignment in a game. And I know some people are not really fans of it. They feel like it's sort of this strange artificial distinction that doesn't really reflect real life. And I understand that point of view, but I also think that if that's how you feel about it, there is more than one way to handle it. I should mention, and I've mentioned this before in the recent post I did about languages, I don't use alignment languages, which were a element of certain versions of the rules. I find them just a little bit too, well, frankly, strange. And I understand the idea behind them, but it takes it a little bit too far in that whole artificial division direction for me. But that said, I do use alignment, and I do want characters to pick an alignment. And I do think that it has a purpose in the game. I tend to work with the basic expert kind of alignment system, also like in Labyrinth Lord, where you have basically 3 alignments. You have lawful, you have chaotic, and you have neutral. And for me, none of them are about being good or evil. But what they can do is they can kind of show a little bit about your overall outlook on life. And I think when you're talking about, and this is my perception, other people have a different idea about it, but when you're talking about your normal person, a normal human being, the overwhelming majority of them are going to be neutral. Because to me, neutral is not the what some people refer to as the true neutral, the balance and the yin and the yang and druidic, nature and all this sort of thing. And it's not necessarily just animalistic, primitive outlook either. To me, neutral is a person who's neutral has a level of motivated self-interest. They're not utterly self-centered. They're not utterly selfish. They're not totally averse to rules and order and things that benefit a group and maintain a sense of continuity. But their primary concern in the course of their lives are themselves and those close to them, whether it's their family or their friends or what have you. And they're going to put those motivations in front, or at least close to the front most times. That's a neutral person. They're trying to get by. They're living their life. They're not worried about big complicated issues. They're not, at least as far as their moral outlook, they're not worried about grand causes or anything like that. A lawful person is a person who has some cause or some group or some organization or something, an institution, whatever you want to call it, that they really believe in. And they really believe in its goals, they really believe in its tenets, and they put that cause in the forefront of their identity, whether it's a religion or politics or the state they live in or what have you. Their race, if it's something like, say, it's an elf or a dwarf or a halfling or anything, or even a human. Maybe it's a extremely xenophobic human that doesn't like other races and feels that human beings are the superior race and should be whatever. That's a lawful person. And a lawful person can be a very good person. They can put the interests of the group ahead of their own. They could be the guy who decides he should be a soldier because he should protect the innocent, a Captain America kind of guy. Or a lawful person could be quite nasty. They could be a person who feels like they should be promoting the interests of a given group or a given organization and bringing order to the world, and not really caring too much about a person's individual freedom or other groups, whether it's another race, like I say before, like they don't like elves or whatever it is. It's almost sort of a Darth Vader kind of a person. So again, it's not about good and evil. Chaotic, sort of the other side of the coin. They're about freedom, they're about choice, they're about not necessarily rebelling against order or law, in the sense that all law is bad or all law is wrong, but the idea that they feel that the most important thing is their own personal choice, and if something doesn't agree with that or it tries to interfere with that, then that thing is bad, and that thing is either going to be avoided, or they'll fight it, or they'll subvert it, or something like that. And they really don't feel like they should be beholden to another person or a group or anything like that. Now, chaotic's kind of tricky to put off as a good person, but they are about freedom. They do believe in the sanctity of the individual. So they are a person who's going, if they see, say, someone being bullied by some soldiers, they might protect that person or stick up for that person, or fight those soldiers because they feel those soldiers are doing something wrong. So, in that sense, they could be sort of like a freedom fighter, literally. On the other hand, they might have a very callous disregard for certain niceties and rules, like personal property. They might be thieves. They might be, whatever. So they aren't necessarily utterly reliable, because what they think is important is what they decide is important. It's not necessarily going to follow the same rules that you or I or a society in general might follow. So that's sort of how I envision the 3-point alignment thing. That said, the reason I like using alignment, and I use that version as opposed to things where you have chaotic good, neutral evil, etc., 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 is because I think it's a great role-playing aid for the characters. I think it's for the players specifically. If you make up a character in my campaign and you have to choose one of those 3 alignments, and you tell me you're lawful, that does 2 things. One, it says to you, the player, gives me some ideas of how I want to play this character. And it gives you some guidelines in role-playing that character. It's not everything that your character's about, but you're going to take that into account. 2, it's going to tell me, the DM, this is sort of what your character's about, and it's going to give me something to base some adventure hooks and some situations and things like that upon, to engage your character and you as a player, and to make the campaign work better for you, for you and your character in it. So that's my take on alignment, and that's where I find the sweet spot to be with alignment. Not getting into things like having things like alignment languages, having alignment being this sort of almost supernatural connection to some higher metaphysical thing. So someone could cast a spell like saying protection from lawful, and it means that a paladin can't physically touch them or something like that. I find that to be a little bit too much along those lines. At the same time, I don't like the idea of doing away with alignments entirely, if nothing else, just because of the role-playing guidelines and the ability to sort of roughly categorize people and monsters and things like that can help give you, in a sense, and a yardstick to sort of measure like how they might react and what they might be thinking or what's important to them. So that's all for now. Take it easy. Bye.